year 4 of we're in year 4 of a 5-year plan.
Okay.
So, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, yeah. So I think you wanted to start us off with the video, correct?
Yes. So we did. Hi, everyone. Eric Kuiper and my partner, Lisa, is right across the room. She's going to be here in just a second. And Lisa, I think I have that video right here. And so this is just a little video that we put together of just some fun activities that happen around our school. We are in a little bit of a delay. Come on, crank up for me.
Can you share your screen so we can see it?
I thought we were shared. Hold on just a second. Lisa, come up real quick. All right, we are, hold on just a second. And I thought we were shared. Let me get up again. Here we go, share screen. I'll click it again. And here we go. Let's see if this is better.
Perfect.
Just a second to load. There you go. Anticipation. All right. And that's just kind of a little bit of what we do here. And I'm going to have Lisa's going to join us real quickly. We're going to come out of that. You got it. We're going to come out of this and we're going to head to our slides. So we here at St. Vincent Ferrer, we're in beautiful, sunny South Florida. We have a lot of great weather, which is wonderful. And we're excited about all of the things that we do here. We set out about 5 or 6 years ago with a principal who was extremely excited about house programs. And she was very much influenced by Ron Clark Academy and some of the experiences. Can we get it so we can see our notes? Some of the experiences that she saw happening with those students. That's okay. We at our school, this is a picture of our school looking from on front. We started out with the idea of trying to find families within our family of St. Vincent Ferrer School. And the house systems were great. We really kind of gear it toward our middle school students for the most part, but we absolutely get our younger school students involved. We are a pre-K 3-year-old school through 8th grade. And as I said, the bulk of our activities are geared toward our middle school. And I'll tell you a little bit about how we get our lower school involved in the program as we go. So our staff met originally, and the year before we implemented the program, a few of us went up to Ron Clark Academy for a couple of days, got some ideas of how they do some things. And it was very exciting for us. And we came back and took their ideas and thought, how can we make this more tuned to our school? So we had a committee that was selected, mostly made up of the student advisors, which at our school we call teacher moderators. So our teacher advisors for the program, and those have changed over the years as well. So we met together. We selected from that our theme and how we were going to go. Our school, St. Vincent Ferrer, is a saint. We talked about a few different ideas, but we really kind of kept ourselves moving toward our St. Vincent Ferrer, and we talked about the attributes, the virtues that St. Vincent Ferrer possessed. So our school identity within the house. When selecting the names, as we went through, that committee selected the names of the group, we selected the colors of each house, and then we also selected an animal that would help represent the virtues that are there, just to kind of get things started. And so as we went through, you can kind of see we have our House of Caritas, which is the deer, the stag. The House of Caritas is about love and charity, and deer are very family-oriented animals. The House of Valor, courage. They selected the lion, and their color is black. Caritas is red for love and charity. The House of Equite, justice. We thought the eagle is such a symbol of justice and equality and the things that we represent. And sabiduria, wisdom. We learned from looking at a few other houses that the name of the house is really important. And so we had seen a few houses that had done, some more generic names, but we love the idea of using a different language, something that was not, there were not words that were familiar in everyday speech. So when you heard the name of that house, it immediately identifies you and has you think about the house. So anytime you would hear it, it automatically identifies with it. It's not something that you're going to hear in everyday speech. And we thought the languages kind of made it even a little bit more exciting. So as we went through and got our names and our characters, it was time to start to talk about the houses and how we were going to get students into those houses. So if I go right here, so we have, I have behind me as well a wheel. And so this wheel, it's on wheels. I can roll it around to different parts of the school. And we had one of our, luckily, one of our staff members, her husband's a carpenter and does really well with these things. So we made the wheel. This was actually a sticker, and we have numbers around. We'll talk about what that means in just a second, but each house is represented. So when students come in and join, they spin the wheel, and whatever house it lands in, we say here at St. Vincent Ferrer that the Holy Spirit has something to do with it. How about that? It landed right in my house, the House of Equite. And so when they spin the wheel, whatever house they would end up in is where they went. And we did not worry about numbers. It was where it was. And if we had one house that had 35 and another house that had 25 for the first few years, we just kind of let it play that way. Over the last 4 years now, this is our 4th year involved, we did a little bit of balancing, and I'll kind of on the slide that you have in front of you, I think you still have, I'm going to go back to this one.
Okay.
You have a wheel. So we also have had issues whenever we had the wheel breakdown or we couldn't get to it or we wanted a bigger platform. We actually did digital wheels. And so we created one. We used a picker wheel app actually, and then we had a number wheel that we created as well. With our numbers and the wheel, using the wheel, we actually use this for weekly spins. Each week, I'll roll the wheel into the cafeteria, or we'll hook up a laptop to the TV in the cafeteria where all of the middle school has lunches together. And we'll select how students can spin for points. Oftentimes I'll use the Live School app and I'll limit my time where I'm looking at it. And I'll say, okay, I want just from last Friday morning to midnight last night. So we have a week's worth of points. The top point getters from each house would come up, spin, and whatever points they earned would go into their total house points. We found a couple weeks ago, I found that the top house point winners were repetitious. We had the same kids kind of really cranking out points. So I decided to just change it up. And on the fly, I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. I go in, it takes me about 5 minutes to go into each house the way we're designed. So it's really easy and user-friendly to go in, grab the points off to who has the most points for that week. And I did the top 3 points. So I said, okay, we're going to acknowledge our top point winner this week, but the second place person for the week is going to do the spinning. Sometimes we'll use the Live School randomizer and just randomly we'll spin it through and say, okay, this person's going to come up from this house and they're going to spin and add points for their house. And so it kind of keeps things going and keeps it fresh and keeps to motivate students. And our next slide, after when we spin, we did a spin this year. Our gym was in the middle of a big, huge back to school bash that was happening. So we weren't available to go in the gym. So we did it in our cafeteria. And once a student spins into a house, our new students, there is a huge celebration. Everybody's divided in different areas by where they are in their house. With the different houses. So when somebody spins into a house, there is a huge celebration. We do our house spins with Facebook Live. So parents at home and other people can kind of do that. In most years, what we've done, and last year, our 5th grade students, we spun them in at the end of the year. So at the end of the year, the last week of school, they knew what house they were going to be going into, and they could get ready for that and they could be welcomed in. So when we came back to school, the only students that we needed to spin in were the new students and the new teachers that came to school to find out where they were going to be in their house. It's a very exciting day. We set up the gym. We've got a big aisle in the middle. We've got balloons from all the different house colors. They come down, there's a stage that they walk up to, and the whole gym is just electric. We do lighting and sound and music, and we make it a really big deal because it is a really big deal. When you're welcomed into a house, you're truly welcomed in. The whole house, everybody that's in there is going to come around and they're going to give you a hug. They're going to give you high fives. They're going to welcome you in. Different years, we've had different identity things. Like one year we had a bracelet with the house color and your house name on it. You'll see in the picture that we have, we did bandanas this year. So they got a bandana with their name on it and they can bring those out. We also have T-shirts that we use to identify us with the house, but those house spins are amazing. And we have a great time with that. We're going to jump to the next slide. When we first were moving into creating our houses, we built our schedule so that we can have a lot of time for houses because we put a lot of emphasis on it. We see the rewards of what it does for our students. It builds incredible morale. And when we'll get to a slide about our point system, I'll talk a little bit about that and how we work it. But we did an all-day retreat. We're a Catholic school. So involved in that, we had a church service. We had a time for them to go and sit in we did it in our big science room with our big science tables, and they sketched out ideas, and the house themselves all worked together and designed their own flags. We have a really cool thing with our flags where we have 2 flag poles. We have the American flag, and then on our second pole, we fly our house flag. Our house flag at the end of each month, the house that has the most points in that month, the flag goes up on a Friday. At the end of our house period, the captains go and they hoist the new flag, and it flies for that entire month over the campus so that everybody coming on and off campus knows which house is ahead for that month. I saw a question here. Do we always have house spins or the houses get uploaded with the number of students? So I mentioned briefly, we do house spins for them, but this year we had a real lopsided event where we had several students graduate from, I was actually the House of Equite. We talked to all of the new students. We pulled them in and said, we're going to give you an opportunity today to make a choice. We had never done this before. They could, all of the other houses, Caritas was at 34 students, Equite was at 22. Valor was at 35 and Sabiduría was at 34. So we had this real big imbalance. So we said to the students, you can spin. We're going to go into the room in a few minutes and you can spin, or you can choose right now to join the House of Equite. And they had already been given material as to what it was. We had several students who said, that's exactly the house that I was hoping to be in. So they jumped in. One thing we do with our houses is, again, it's about family. So if you have a sibling, you are all in the same house. So that way at home, mom and dad can get on board and everybody's rooting for the same thing. And you don't have in-house rivalries and you don't have, battles going on, because we get parents involved as well. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through. So we actually had this year never had this before. We had 4 sets of twins who came as new students to our school. All 4 sets chose to join the House of Equite. So we immediately had 8 more students. And then we went on with the spin, and it actually ended up balancing out that all of the houses are within 1 number of each other. So it worked out great. We had a little problem. We decided to flip it a little bit. And a lot of it is thinking on the fly. How is it going to help and benefit the students? So that was a big thing as to what we did. This year, in year 4, we're working on creating school crests. So I have for you kind of a timeline. So first, students we have the House of Equite. They kind of did a sketch of what they kind of think wants to represent the house. The students work together. They do a whole brainstorming thing. They get 2 or 3 kids who are artistic to kind of come up with some ideas and work with them to get some concepts. Then they kind of sketch it out. You'll see the House of Valor has sort of a sketch that they're working on. The House of Sabiduria is a little bit further along. They're looking at trying to what shape they want to go, the different aspects they want in their house. And then Caritas is actually, I think, pretty finished. Caritas, interestingly enough, did something very interesting in their house, which it just shows that they need to be in the house of love and charity. Their symbol of love is there, obviously, with the hands, but they incorporated all of the other houses in their crest. They have the blue of Equite. There's some purple in there for Sabiduria, and the black of the House of Valor. So even it's their own crest, they have a representation. And if you look, if you looked at some of the flags, some of the people there wanted to absolutely come in so that we have competition with one another, but we're one big family, and each house is kind of like a brother or sister or a cousin. So they work at, yeah.
Okay, so we just talked about a lot, and then we're going to be moving on to how we use live school and some competitions and the different categories for points. So I didn't know if you wanted us to pause a little bit here before we go on to that for a quick questions, or should we just continue on?
I'd say continue on. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Great. And in just a couple of minutes, we have 2 of our moderators who are going to be joining in that are going to be here to help answer some questions as we go along as well. So in our live school app, we have a school motto. Our school motto is hearts to God, minds to learning, talents to service, and stewards of the earth. So we took our rubric and we based things on those categories. We also have a category on major competitions and minor competitions. So when we give points, we've played around with the point system. In the first couple of years, we had 2 points for this, 4 points for this, 10 points for this. And the major competitions were crazy. It was 300 for first place. And then it was a 75-point increment going down. We found that those little acts of random kindness, which we really felt are really important. Those things where you catch a student doing something without being asked. And most of the time, they're never told they're given points. But in our first meeting, students, this year and the first meeting each year, they sit down, they get their code, their student code from live school. They're able to monitor their points, who gave it to them and why. The teachers will put it in. And so as a matter of fact, I had a student today ran across the whole field to pick up a ball that was out by the fence at the end of recess, and he ran it back in. He wasn't asked to do it. He just did it. And I came in, and on my app, on my phone, I gave him points for assisting without asking, under hearts to God. He did that as something he looked around and for the greater good decided to do something without being asked. Later on in the day, he might get a notification when he gets to his class that pops up and tells him he got points. And that reward grows. It's an amazing thing. It's very exciting to them to see that. But as the points were built, we decided we needed to look at things a little differently. We brought down the points for our major competitions. Instead of 300 for first place, it was 200, and then it was 50-point increments. They're still really big because they're big competitions. Then we created some minor competitions, which were like 50, 40, 30, 20. And so everybody gets points for some place in there, but first place is first place. Not everybody gets the trophy at the end of the day. And so we wanted them to have competition, but then we moved some of those everyday things to being more like 5 points or 10 points. We give point rewards academically under Minds to Learning for students who are able to earn all of their AR points, their reading points. If they are in regular honor roll, principals list, there are different levels of that, and they can earn points for that. If they're involved in a school activity, if they're on a sports team and they complete the season, they're given points for their participation in that. If they're involved in the school musical, they do that. If they go and cheer on a team, they go to a game on their own time and they're cheering on their friends and they're really working to show that school spirit, they can sign in and they can get points for that as well. Looking at our next slide, as we go through, earning those points can be really great. In the bottom left, you see we were under a little bit of construction as we were there, but that was the very first year. I think it was our House of Sabiduria who won the cup, the House Cup. It is a large trophy, and it's heavy and it's exciting. So do all points go to the house, or are they attract for individual as well? Every child, and when you look in your report from Live School, you can go into your, we asked to have it divided by house. So students are listed by house. They're also listed by the entire grade, and they're also listed by their homeroom. So they can go into any one of those areas and they can see the points that they were given individually. And then on the points total board, the dashboard, it adds into the entire house. So students can see the individual points that they've earned, and they can see how that affects and adds into the points of the whole house.
And to just jump in here, this is one of the things. So this is obviously for your school specifically. With Live School, it's a culture decision that schools make. So they also run a store, right, where students can spend their points, right, but their points are kept in the house as well. So, but I love how your school has set this up specifically, but there is flexibility within Live School to cater it to how you want. So I know many people on this call use Live School already, so they might use it a little bit differently, but that's a really important decision for your school to make.
Yeah, it is. And for us, it's really about the value of doing good. And the idea that we work to work for, not necessarily for the points and for the rewards, but because we want to do something good and we throw a reward out there. It's wonderful. Hey, Julie, we just saw Julie Dadio, who is our house moderator for the House of Equite. Julie.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, do you want to talk anything about the points and how those things go in? I know that you are great about doing that as well.
About how you physically put them in, or what was
about why you would give points and what you see the students getting out of those points.
Oh, excellent. Okay, so each teacher has the opportunity to add points, and so we have categories, obviously, but if I catch someone being good or kind or exhibiting the virtues that we like at St. Vincent Ferrer, we'll give them points for that. For example, we had like a little party in our classroom the other day, and one child stayed after, "Can I please help you clean up?" I gave him points for that because no one asked him to do it. He just did it. We have that type of thing. If we have an extra challenging test or something, if the people who score 100%, they may get points for that. If they're showing a virtue such as kindness or other virtues that we're looking forward to, and they're good with the other people in their classrooms, we'll give them points for that. There's many opportunities they have, and it's basically all positive input. We don't take any points away. If they've had a behavior that's we aren't looking for, we still don't take points away from what they've already earned.
We believe in a positive point system only. We have the option, in the way Live School is set up, to do it as a positive or a negative, but we really want to emphasize the positive ways of moving forward. And that's just a choice at our school that we've decided to do in the culture that we have. Another thing, a lot of teachers will, if they do like a a Kahoot, or if they do so a little quiz or something, students can earn points if they win one of those little competitions in class, and they gear it toward, they take their little quizzes and things like that, and they'll do speed things, and it becomes a real fun way of students recalling information for class, and a little bit of extra incentive to come down. And I always love it. The class that happens just before our house time on Fridays, you'll hear the buzz coming in. Man, I won 2 quizzes today. So I was able to get, 20 points for our house today. And so they come in and they're really excited about that. And it just fuels that excitement for doing good, learning more, being able to really kind of push the idea that if I am doing well, if I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to do, not only does it help me, but it helps the greater good. It helps my house and eventually helps the entire school, which is a really exciting thing.
And we had a question come in, and you might be addressing this later in the presentation already, so I'll just flag it. But Morgan was wondering, what are some of the things that students in houses can spend points on? So that's might be coming, but just wanted to flag that.
Well, actually, we don't use it that way. They spend their points are recognized, and it is about building the child. So that when they're doing something, we want them to learn that out in the real world, this is our culture, out in the real world, the reward for doing something wonderful and doing something great should be self-satisfying and self-gratifying. And so that's part of the virtues of St. Vincent Ferrer and the things that we're looking to instill in our students. We want them doing good to do good. And
one of the things I'll add too, because I think that is, I love that idea, right? Students are doing good to do good and to support their house, right? And they get the pride of flying that flag every month. I think that that's just such a fun way of being able to express that. I did drop a link in the chat for people to check out. This is, we call it Rewards That Rock. We put it together. It's 100+ reward ideas, and you can actually filter for house specific rewards or individual student specific rewards. All of them are submitted by schools that work with Live School. So they're all actually being used in schools across the US right now. And so there are some house specific rewards if that is something you want to motivate your students. So there are some fun ideas there. Students who receive high points, like I said, they get great recognition. If they're the leaders for their points and the things that they're doing, it's great. It's about team building. And as we go through, it's about really motivating students to work together for their house. And then it's the projects and things that they do within their house help the school community and the greater community. We do a lot of, and we're going to come up to kind of like some of the charities and some of the other work that we do. In our team building, we have, so next week, and Julie can kind of talk to us a little bit as well, we have a fall festival coming up. So student leaders have come up with some really cool activities for them. There's going to be a pumpkin rolling. One year we did a scarecrow creating and decorating, and we put them out, and they were on display for a week or so out in the well, until the pumpkins rotted, actually, out in the field. It gets hot in Florida, so those pumpkins don't last as long as they do other places. But those team building activities really help students to find the importance in what it means to be greater than self. And again, that's kind of what we do. Hey, and Coach Rod just signed in as well. Coach Rod, how you doing, buddy? So we've had several different team building things. We have done major competitions, which are also a lot of those major competitions, they break into and become team building activities. We've done basketball shootouts. Yeah. And we've done trivia, world trivia. We do, again, academic competitions like Battle of the Books. They're studying. That's Mrs. Daddio's thing. She's our librarian. She gets very excited about that. And they prepare and they read, and they have to ask really difficult questions on books. We did an escape room competition one time. These fall and spring festivals that we do all these different competitions, and the students really work together to get the points for those big rewards. However, when we see outstanding participation, or we see one house cheering for another house, we see 2 or 3 kids cheering on somebody from another house,
all the teachers all have the opportunity to give them special participation points, going above and beyond, cheering on someone else. So those are things that we find really valuable in our school. Is that? Yeah.
So I'm showing the team building slide. Rod, it would be great if you could unmute. Rod Huggins is our amazing, one of our amazing PE coaches. And Rod, right before you got on, they were asking about points and do our students use points in a store? And we were saying how the culture is more such that they know they belong to a certain team and they're proud to be on that team. And what we do for team building and how it becomes just as important to be part of a team that's doing really well at your school because of the points, rather than just like going to a shop or using points to. So maybe you can talk about team building and points and how that all works, which house gets their flag up and things like that. I think you're on mute.
I think you're still muted. Maybe your thing.
Yeah.
Coach Rod is our moderator of the House of Valor.
There you go.
Oh.
No, we can't hear you.
Still can't hear you. We'll figure it out.
All right. Julie, do you want to talk about that while we're waiting?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I'm looking at the screen you have up right now and just looking at some of the things that we did here. And the center picture was one of our activities we called Speed Buddy. So when new students spin into the house, we all want to get to know each other because they're all different grade levels. So it's kind of like speed dating where they had a minute to talk with each person and then they would go down the line and so on. So that lasted about a half an hour. That was a fun team building activity because they got to know each other in a real positive way. And it was kids they probably may not have spoken to in the past. A lot of our competitions are for points and some are just to build that relationship. The kids really like the competition for points, though, I will say that.
Mhm.
And sometimes we've done cheers where we make up a cheer and then we have people vote on the cheers, people that are not in your houses and see, you know, what they're looking for, the spirit, how many are involved, that sort of thing. That's always fun. We did when we have our service activities, one of our service activities, I don't know if you've already discussed this or not.
No, we haven't gotten there yet.
Oh,
But
okay.
Go ahead.
So
Yeah, go ahead, Julie.
when some of them are out of school, it's on the weekends or that sort of thing. So if they go, they get points for attending these service opportunities. For example, we have sandwich making for the Care Kitchen. We have the Miracle League, which helps children that can't normally play baseball. We're buddies for them. We baked cookies for the Sea Turtle Adventures Eye Care program, which is adults with special needs. Sea Turtle Adventures, we went on a beach cleanup and we paint the markers for the sea turtle nest, which in South Florida is a big deal.
Yeah.
We also have given baskets and collections and things for our policemen and firemen and, you know, other community organizations in our community. We're always doing things like that, reaching outside of the school to represent our school, to represent the kids and what we're looking for. And they do earn points for that as well if they participate because it is outside of the school day. So
And it's teaching our students to go beyond self again. As we said, it's about the community here at school, but it's also about the community around. Most of our charities are local charities. We feel it's important to kind of take care of our own community first, but we do get involved in larger national charities as well. You know, things like we have something the House of Caritas is working to bring meals for families at Thanksgiving and Christmas out in the Glades area, which is at a church that's out there. They sponsor several families, and we're going to kind of adopt some families, and the students are going to work together with that. And we try to bring them and get them involved. The Belle Glade is one of the poorest communities in the country, and it's only 25 miles from Palm Beach, which is one of the wealthiest communities in the country. So we have such a diverse community that we live in Palm Beach County, and we want our students to be able to see all of it. And we have a fairly diverse student body. We have students who come from very well-to-do means and those who are here on full scholarship and are working to do things. And that community-minded diversity training is so important, we feel. So the next thing we have is, I will say, and I'm just going to say this out of the gate because a lot of people look and go, how do you get all this done with your school? I'm going to touch on one thing as the screen is in front of you that I wanted to bring in. So it's geared mostly toward our middle school, and I put up our Friday middle school schedule. But before I talk about that, how do we get involved in the lower school? So every staff, every teacher, every teacher's assistant, every custodian, the office staff, every single person is involved in a house, all of the adults. And each teacher, when Johnny is in first grade and his teacher is in the house of Caritas, he is a member of the house of Caritas. He's excited. If he has an older brother or sister that is already in a house, he's in that house as well. And in second grade, he might have a teacher who is in the house of Valor. And in third grade, he might have a teacher that's in the house of Equite. So they get to experience a little bit of the houses and the experience. They come in and they root on that house no matter where they are. So our hope is, it doesn't always work out that way, but we have enough diversity in our lower school faculty and the assistant teachers that they are able to be exposed to every single house and being a part of that and the culture of that house. So they have an idea, if they've been with us, when they come in at the end of fifth grade, of where they think they want to be. And sometimes they end up there and sometimes they don't. We like to say here at St. Vincent Ferrer that you might end up in a house where that virtue is something that you possess and you can share that virtue and help grow that throughout your house. Or it might be a virtue that you need in your life. And so that's why you end up in that house, and it helps you to develop that virtue a little bit further. So if you look at our house, at our schedule for this is just our middle school. You'll notice in the middle from 12:02 till 1 o'clock, we have house lunch. So normally on Monday through Thursday, our students sit within their grades. They can sit where they like in designated areas for the grade, all in the cafeteria. We have a patio, an outdoor patio that the 8th graders have a privilege to sit at. But on Fridays, everybody sits with their house. We have lunch together with their house. And then after about 20 minutes or so, we usually do a house spin on Fridays with everybody there to see what's going on. Everybody's cheering on to try to get the most points for their house. Our wheel goes from 3 points to 27 points that they can earn on a spin. Those points do not go to the individual child, though. Those points go to the house. And so I actually created a student with a house name. So we have like Val Orr is one of our students, and Kari Toss is what is in that house. So we can award points directly to the entire house as opposed to going to an individual student. So we kind of got a little creative and created an extra student. But during that house lunch, every week, our Friday is based this way. And I know, Coach Rod, I don't know if your mic will work. I know all of our moderators kind of split out. And one of the things that we talk about is having a student-led group, how to have students lead the houses. We have gone through with our moderators, kind of helping. They have to facilitate, the room requests and things like that, and advise. And it started off with the moderators doing a bulk of the work. We are now at the point where our house leaders, some call them captains, some call them leaders, and that's up to each individual house as to how that happens. And how they're selected is different in each house as well. We started out originally with people applying, application to become a captain. We're going to talk about that on the next slide as we go through. But during our house lunch, our house leaders, after lunch, we break into our individual houses, or we go to a big group activity. Once we get into the individual houses, our students take over and they're leading there, and all of the middle school staff and faculty that is, and the whole school that's available comes to that house meeting each week. Sometimes you might have a 3rd grade assistant that's in there. You might have one of the administrators, the principal is in her Caritas meeting, or as the dean of students, I'm in the Equite meeting. I also serve as house marshal, so I'm a part of all of the houses to represent them as well. So when we get into that meeting time, we have that time set aside every single week on a Friday where we can meet as a house, build some different things, go where we want it to go, and then prepare for some of the competitions and things that go up. Coach Rod or Julie, do you want to chime into anything that happens in those?
Yes, can everybody hear me now?
Yeah, Coach.
Yay.
All right. Had to switch over to my cell phone. Thanks, Kuiper. No, so pretty much our house meetings every week. They're really, really important to what we do in our house system because we're able to provide a little bit more structure in the house. As moderators, we try to give the students more of the leeway to kind of lead those meetings as much as possible. Of course, sometimes we have to step in and help guide them. But for the most part, those students, they engage and get to know one another. I think Julie mentioned our Speed Buddy routine where we had, a different group of kids ask a different group of kids each week a different question to get to know them a little bit better. Because what we found in the beginning when we would just let them go on their own, it would be 8th graders with 8th graders, 7th grade with 7th grade, 6th grade with 6th. But when we started mixing them up, it got so much better because now the 6th graders have that 8th grader or that senior to look up to and get to know. So then when they get older, they're able to do the same thing with a 6th grader that follows them. So it's a really good opportunity for the kids to know each other, to plan for your events, to kind of be like a pep rally for your next, competition. I think Julie and Kuiper mentioned that we really love competitions at this school. The kids love it. So, just being able to be with them during that lunch to kind of get them excited and ready for it and make sure all the X's and O's are ready to go. So I think it's a really good process for us as a school, and I think everybody will love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Coach. I'm going to click on our last slide, and it talks about our moderators and our staff and our actually, I'm going to go back a quick second up on student leaders. We went through some changes in how we wanted to develop that. Originally, we had student leaders apply. Those students who thought they wanted to be it, we did a Google form and they were able to kind of fill out some things and they did an application. They had to write a little essay. We interviewed those students and then selected who, as a committee, we selected who we felt were going to be the best leaders. We actually did that before anybody had spun into a house. And so we had this group of leaders who we knew, and wherever they fell into the house, we went in. Well, we ended up with one house that nobody had applied. It ended up with they weren't there, but we knew enough about our students to kind of go through and pick some students who could lead. Now we've kind of formatted it a little differently. We actually have students apply, basically say, I'm interested in being a leader. I'm not. We do not, because we want to spread the wealth some. If a student is one of our 4 main student government leaders, they are not eligible to be a house leader, a house captain, or a house leader. They have enough responsibility in student government, but we want our house leaders to meet with the student government to help guide the whole school as a larger council. But they can be an honor society officer. They can be other things that doesn't matter. They can be leaders in other ways, captains on teams. So we're looking for people with great leadership. They tell us through Google form if they're interested in being considered. And then we, as house moderators and some of the other staff and middle school staff, we'll put up all the people that have applied. And then we have our students, our teachers kind of chime in and say positive attributes, concerns, and things like that. And then from there, in each house, the moderator, we leave it up to the moderator. And as a committee, we talk about it together, and the moderators decide who's going to be leading. One house, the House of Sabiduria, our social studies teacher, is doing it through a sort of a Socratic method, where he's got a couple of leaders this quarter. 2 different leaders are going to step up and lead this another quarter. I think in the House of Equite, Ms. Daddio felt there were really good male leaders and really good female leaders, and it was I think Coach Rod did the same thing. They wanted to pick sort of a committee of leaders. There's no one captain. There's another house that likes to have a captain and have one person that's sort of leading, but we leave that up to each individual house to have their own culture and the way that they want to implement that. But the student leaders, you have to have students who are motivated, who communicate well, who are not afraid to stand up in front of a group and say, this is what we're going to do. And sometimes, and we felt that it's more about having a couple of students to bring up the bulk, because it's a lot of extra work.
And
Um,
before we jump into this slide, we did
yeah.
have a question come in that I just wanted
Great.
to quickly put in
Please.
front of you. So Kevin's wondering if it's only positive. So are students only receiving positive points, or are there positive and negatives?
So for us here, we know we have the capability of doing that, but we really only want to do positive points of things. I also happen to be the dean of discipline at our school. There are enough negative consequences in the world and in life that we do not want the house system to be another place where a student can feel like they've failed. They may feel like they're not contributing as much as they could, but they're not going to be taken away. We made the decision that because there's a bigger group involved and that those houses, because all of our points filter into our house, that a student who does something that takes away from the house might create some negative attention and negative energy from their peers. And we just, at our school, we just don't want that culture of students putting that extra pressure on them. They put enough pressure on themselves for not contributing more to the school. And we get a little bit of that. We can have some of our guys say, hey man, I haven't seen any points from you. Let's see, what can we do to help you earn some points for our team and for our house? And by doing that, it doesn't strip them of points. It doesn't cost the team. It doesn't get down on them, but instead it encourages them toward a positive result. Again, that's just the culture that we have decided to have here at our school.
Can I pop in really quick also?
Yeah.
The students can log in to Life School and see what points they've earned and what they've earned them for. So that's an incentive as well, because they can go in and say, oh, hey, I got points for picking up the paper in Mrs. Daddio's class, and I got points for doing this. I didn't realize that. So that kind of feeds them into, oh, if I do more of that sort of thing, I'm going to be earning points for my house. We also do the accelerated reader system here at school. So if they achieve their quarterly goals for accelerated reader, they earn 10 points for their house as well. So that's an incentive for that, like, oh, I got my points, my AR points, so now I got points for my house as well. So they can see that, they can view what they're earning their points for, and that's a good thing.
We also, for those of you who are more my age and a little older crowd in here, we try to avoid the Eddie Haskell syndrome, where kids are going, hey, if I do this, can I get points? If you ask for points, you're not going to earn them for that. Or if you say, hey, Mr. Kuiper, if I stay out and I, straighten out the chairs in your room or do something, is that a way that I can get points? And I said, it could be, but since you just asked, no. And so, but if a kid does it and comes up and just does it on their own, that's something that we want to reward them with.
Can I jump in?
Yep.
And another thing is we have display boards. We have a big one right in the hall where the students pass by every day going to different classes, as well as in the cafeteria. And
Coming in the main office too. So.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And on that display board, it shows each house and the points, and it's live. So as they're it can go up, they can watch it go up, and they'll stop in front of it and thell say, oh, I'm in Caritas, look, we're in third place. And then that kind of reminds them, oh, when I go to my next class, I'm going to do my best in that class. If there's a challenge in the class or a quiz, or I'm going to work hard today to get some more points so that my team, my house the points can go up. And that seems to work because they see that every day.
I love when I hear kids in the hallway go, man, how did Equite go up 15 points last hour? And so it's like, we got to jump in, we got to get this going. And then you see them start to talk to kids in their house in the hallway. And I love when you see that 8th grader go to the 6th grade. Hey, I heard Mr. Beck today has got a quiz going on with a Kahoot. Get in there, get your points, get on there. We need you to do that. So you see the older students passing in the hallways with the younger students, encouraging them to do that. And sometimes, which is great, the younger students encouraging the older students. The last slide that I have up here informative is about our moderators. And our moderators, we started off with our original moderators. We have just Miss Daddio left as one of our original moderators. We have 2 of our original moderators have moved out of the area. And another moderator decided, she had done it for a few years and she said it was overwhelming. It was fantastic. She said that now I just want to be able to be a participator and a cheerleader and pass it on to another teacher who was in that house. And it does take time. We meet every single week before school. Our school day, the teachers report at 7:15. The students, the school day starts at 8 o'clock. We have people who cover homeroom to make sure that we can all be there to make sure that that happens. But we meet every single week. Once a month, sometimes more often when needed, we have our student officers come in and meet with us. Our student officers also meet at least once a month, sometimes twice a month, at lunch on their own on a different day. It might be a Tuesday or Wednesday, and they have lunch together as a whole group, all of the houses together, the leaders of all of the houses together, to talk about things that are going on in their houses, and some of the things that they'd like to look forward to. There's a little bit of good trash talk that goes on in those meetings too. Like, hey, if we do a basketball shootout, we got some players on ours. Oh yeah, but if we do this, but it's all really a positive thing. And one of us might sit in there, or another staff member might just sit in there. Sometimes we'll set that up in another classroom, and whoever the adult is in the room that's there is really just kind of quiet and just sitting there to have the adult in the room, and they feel safe with that adult. They talk and they drive their ideas, and they work together to make sure that the fall festival and other things are great. One of our house moderators, I think Gabby, is in the House of Valor. She created a sign up genius. Is that right? Sign up genius for students to bring in different activities for the fall festival that's coming next week. Our students are really trying to drive and create those things, but our moderators, there is work that's always going to have to be done. Even if it is completely student driven and student led, there are still moderators that have to put in the requests for facilities and have to make sure that the schedule works. We do have once a month, we usually try to have one larger activity. Sometimes those activities, we talk with the middle school, we adapt our schedule a little bit. And on a Friday, we might change it up and do a regular 30-minute lunch and then go to classes. And then the last hour or an hour and a half of the day, we'll adapt a little bit and we'll do our activity toward the end of the day, because the activity's full of energy and we don't want anybody having to go into an ELA class that has just come out of a huge activity. And the staff is really open and flexible to those opportunities for us to do that as well. So that's kind of our St. Vincent Ferrer house system in a nutshell. We'd love to hear some questions or concerns that you guys have in the time we have remaining.
Yeah, so I'll open it up for questions. I know we're a little over time, so we will be sending out this recording too to everyone. A few people messaged me saying they had to drop for another meeting, but thank you so much for sharing this with us. It's such an amazing culture, not only you've built at your school, but within each individual house, and how it plays up to the larger school culture. I think it's just really beautiful. And I love that idea of family. You can see that coming through. But Jordan, I think you might have had a couple questions come to you as well in the remaining 5 minutes we have.
Yes. So I'm a big fan of the intentionality of culture, and that's all over this. Everything you guys are doing is so intentional and thought out. So I've got a notebook full of notes right now, but I'm going to narrow it down to two things.
All right.
And both of them have to do with time and the time frame you guys have been doing this. The first one, I love the student input on the designs, the flags and the crests and those kind of things. For the next group of kids that come in, do they get to edit? Do they get to make their own? How do they get to put their stamp on it?
So once we have, it's interesting. We had that question come up today in our house moderator meeting, because the moderator was talking about how some of the kids aren't thrilled with the Sabiduria flag because the original design was supposed to have fringe on the flag, and then they figured out they couldn't do it. They couldn't make it that way. So they had to adapt it. We also like tradition. And so the last thing that we want to do is have an alum come back and go, oh, wow, you changed things. But when things change with time, if the house feels they want to make a change, everything's up for discussion. But there are some things that aren't. The mascot isn't, the color, the virtue, the name, things like that. Those are not. Could we maybe add to some things? Could we maybe change it? What do you think, Ms. Daddio? What do you think, Coach Rod? You guys are right in there with the kids.
Well, I will say the crest and the flag do take a lot of thought and time. And there's an expense to producing that as well. So I'm not sure that we would want to be changing it, but I definitely understand because we have had kids coming in a couple of years later saying, oh, I would have done this differently, or why didn't they do that? You know, so maybe every few years it might be something to rotate through or revisit because, you know, they start in 6th grade, maybe by the time they're out in 8th grade, maybe that next, you know, group could have a chance to look it over and reproduce the flag or the crest. The crest has been tough for us as a house in general. You know, we have ideas, but they keep changing because you want to represent everything that you are. And sometimes that's hard for a middle school brain to think how to do that in the best way. So it is something to consider though.
And to do it cleanly without being cluttered. And they're using, some houses use Canva to take their ideas and recreate it in Canva. Some of them use like a crest builder to kind of get started and work on it. And those images, the crests are actually going to be created and put onto polo shirts. We now have t-shirts that have our house animal and our name, but we're looking at kind of up in the game and creating like a polo shirt that students could wear. There you go, like our school crest. Thank you, Ms. Daddio, for showing that off. And so it would have the house on it. So again, the expensive printing and doing all that. Great question.
So,
Well, wonderful. I do have to jump in because we are at 2 p.m. So I want to be really respectful to everyone's time. But thank you so much for sharing this with us. We'll send out the recording to everyone. I know we'll be following up to talk with you all more. It's really amazing what you've been able to build. And so thank you for sharing this with us today.
And you're more than welcome to share
Thank you.
our communication, like our contact information. If anybody wanted to email us or contact us with any questions,
Absolutely.
be happy
Okay.
to do that.
I'll put that in the email then as well. So you'll be receiving that too. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your Thursday.
Thanks a lot,
Thank
guys.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank y'all.